jump in. So the goal here really is for you all to end up with some semblance of a business plan at the end of the 9th session when you're making a presentation of some ilk. Now, a business plan can look in a million different ways. For each one of you, it's going to look a little bit differently. But what we're going to do is go through a process that helps you really dig into what all those different aspects are that you need to research, practice, experiment, test out along the way in order to try and help figure out what your plan is and how you're going to get from point A of I love making this thing to I'm selling it and I can turn this into a viable piece of my life or my institution. So we're going to be building on a lot of the stuff that you practiced already in the Shift workshop. I mean, none of this is rocket science. I promise you that you will not learn some crazy, get rich quick scheme or silver bullet that's going to change your life. You're going to practice stuff, and you're luckily going to practice it with a bunch of people who are in the same boat. So one of the things that makes this program a little bit different is that we are going to have you prototype what it is that you want to do /make /design along the way so that you don't get all the way to the end of a business plan only to discover that it's totally not feasible because you can't make what you think you're going to make in the time period that you have that allow at a price point that people will buy. So the whole idea here is to try stuff out, to fail quickly and try and figure out how to fix the problems that you have in your design process before they become insurmountable. For some of you it may be, and this is worst case scenario, you may get to the end of this program and go, oh my gosh, I can't do this, but I'm not gonna take out a loan and start something that I can't do. You'll know that at the end of the day what you're doing is feasible and that it's something that you can be proud of and that you can invest in and that you have a plan to move forward with. So I'm just going to do some quick reminders about design thinking because this is really what you're going to be doing for the next several months. So the design process is hard and you experienced a little bit of that in the Shift workshop. Hopefully you're experiencing this in your life in general, but part of what we're going to have you do is stay in the really uncomfortable place of not knowing the answers right now. So all of you may have an idea about what you're here for and what you might want to do, but hopefully it's not horribly concrete because chances are if it is, you're going to be upset when we knock a hole into some of that concrete and it topples over because that will likely happen along the way. But that's what we're here for, is to do that together so that you don't get too far down the road. But this design process allows us to stay in that space of not making decisions longer than in a typical business planning process. So the key, though, is that you're trying to get to this sweet spot that is about you making something that you love, that people want, that you can actually produce at a reasonable cost, and that it's feasible that you can produce it at a reasonable cost to get to this place where the price meets the time, meets the product. And that's what we're going to do for the next couple of months. The other, hopefully, I hope that you got this out of our class as well, is that design thinking is all about being human-centered. So we're going to do a lot of reminders along the way that this is about you as a maker, as a creator, as an entrepreneur, as a thinker, but it's mostly also about who you're doing it for. So we're going to encourage you to think more and more and more about your audience because it's not actually about you, it's about them and what you're able to do for them with your products, with your designs, with the things that you're making. So thinking about that reminder that when you think about electronics and how sometimes it feels like they're not actually made for people, they're made with this intention to get something done, but they don't think about how we're going to use it, and like the Apple Watch. Maybe we'll all come around and discover how that is the greatest thing in the world. But even Apple, who believes that there's a new way to imagine how we're going to interact with technology, has to go back to the human being and figure out how we use things and how we use their product. And seems we have not jumped on the bandwagon of the watch yet. However, we all, except for Amy, have one of these here. It's okay, and we appreciate that about you.
Stay strong.
Yes.
Well done.
Yes.
The
I love
other,
the birds on the weekend, by the way.
what do you mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Nobody even pays attention to what's going on.
Oh,
outside
that
this
is so
world.
not true. That is so not true.
I'm so tired of going out there with glued to these little things, and I just look at them and go.
Limit your time.
Try telling that to the younger people.
Well, let's not go down that road. So for
Well,
here,
older people do.
for here, what we're gonna do though is remember that what we're trying to do is not gonna be clean. This is not gonna be a straight line. It's gonna be messy along the way, and that's kind of the point. So the good news is you're with a bunch of people who want to make messes, and we're gonna be messy together. So that means that later we'll clean up our room and we'll figure it out, but in the meantime, we're gonna really embrace that piece of the craziness of the creative process. Have any of you read this book or heard of this book, The Lean Startup? Okay. Don't forget, on the website, in your course, there are links to all of these things. This is a really cool book, and it is basically how to start a business when you don't have any money. It is what do you do, and how do you figure out how to not lose your shirt, especially if you only have one shirt, because you're starting at the very beginning. So one of the things that this guy did, that Eric did, was he researched a lot of startup companies and looked at what they were doing, what made them succeed, and it was the ones that did prototyping and experiments early on, and they started really small. They weren't building their entire company and vision at the beginning. They were trying little things along the way and then learning from those experiments and discovering how, once they did that experiment, they could figure out how their product changed. So one of the big principles that they talk about in the Lean Startup, there's a whole movement, there are conferences you can go to, and blah, blah, blah. We're here, we're doing it on our own, in our own time. But the key is to do prototyping and experimenting as early as you possibly can, and to not spend a fortune on them. This is not go build the Cadillac. This is build a version, the minimal viable product that you can, the smallest version of what you are imagining, so that you can test and see how the audience responds to it, how the marketplace responds to it. It's the MVP, it is, of the lean startup world, minimum viable product. And so check out this book, we'll get deeper into that. But look at how cool it is that the same concept, it's just like the design thinking thing, it's all a circle and a cycle, which is how world domination happens, is in cycles. But here's what you do. You take your idea, you start to build it, you start to then turn it into something that's testable, you measure it, you get more information, you learn, and then you start over. So this is more of that design thinking process. It's just taking it a little bit farther and actually saying, let's build the actual products along the way. So here's your minimum viable product. We're going to test things. There's a whole segment in the book on pivoting, because once you make your prototype and we start to get some information, there may be this moment that I mentioned before where you realize, wow, that broom no longer needs to be used for cleaning. This is doing something totally different, and I need to imagine a market that's way over here and they actually don't want handles on that thing. They need something completely different, and all of the information that you learned in the process of prototyping gave you that information that made you say, wow, I gotta go over here instead of where I thought I was going. So this is why we try to keep you in that messy space as long as we can, so that you don't get way down the road on a plan that is just gonna get thrown out or end up on a bookshelf somewhere and you're back at, step one again. So when you think about this minimum viable, I do like this part. And all these slides, by the way, are in your book. So you are welcome to look at them. You don't want to make something, when you're talking about minimum, it doesn't mean make something crappy. It means make something that's a smaller version of what it is, or a small number of what it is that you're making or want to make. And think about what makes it viable. A big company that can mass produce something right away, if they don't do this part first of testing, they could make a whole lot of things that nobody wants at a bad price point. But here's one of the ways we're going to get you started on this. We have a little venture canvas for you to imagine how your business plan works. You have this in your book on the website. You have a fillable version of this. So imagine this as one page. Imagine this as a canvas itself, and realize that all the things that you're thinking about for your business can all really be broken down into pretty small little neat parcels. Now, other business classes teach about a canvas. So the things that we're going to have you focus on should seem a lot like the classes that we're doing. So you've got your mission, your vision, your venture description. When you get through your mission and your vision and you start to dig into what your product is all about, we're going to end up having you come up with a value proposition. Don't think about it now, it's too scary. But we're also going to have you figure out who your customer is and really challenge you to think about whether you're thinking about your market in the right way. We're going to talk about how you're getting to market, what are the different sales channels that you're going to find. Marketing strategy, financial description, that's your business model. What's your business, the business model you're going to use to sell things. Revenue streams, costs, and the milestones along the way that are getting you to those steps. So believe it or not, all of that you're going to cover in this class, and it shouldn't be more complicated than this. Now there will be details underneath it, but this really will distill down what it is that you're trying to do and how you're trying to get there in a pretty nice, neat, and tidy way that will keep you focused and thinking about how you want to get things done for your business. So, the presentations. I want to relieve all of the fear, well, not all the fear, because some of the fear is good. I find fear to be a helpful motivator sometimes. One of our Evolve alumni is a woman named Jennifer Ivanovic, and I'm going to show you what she did for her presentation, because she chose actually not to do a presentation because she has a really hard time speaking. She struggles with communication in general, and so her way of solving the presentation world for herself was to do a little video.